It's time now to take a look at stories making headlines on Nigerian newspapers. And I have with me in the studio lawyer and social development advocate Jide Ologun. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Veronica.
Right, let's head straight to the papers now. And I begin with Nigerian News Direct. Electoral Amendment Bill. 73 senators signed to veto Buhari's rejection. Declares rejection fallacious. Buhari should be commended for standing with Nigerians. All right, you find the details on the pages of the Nigerian News Direct. To the Punch newspaper now. Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Senators threaten to override governor's back president. All right. Senators threaten to override Buhari, governor's back president. You find the details on the pages of the Punch newspaper. All right, to the Daily Trust now. Electoral bill. Senators collect signatures to override Buhari. Say direct primaries or no budget passage. They've passed the budget already. We must reform our electoral system. Gbajabiamila Mila. Fayemi backs president as governors reach out to legislators. We are disappointed. Rafsanjani speaking. All right, to the front page of the Blueprint. Dumped Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Fayemi backs Buhari as senators move to override veto. All right, that's the details on the pages of the Blueprint. To this Nigerian newspaper now. Varsity strike looms. No resources to meet your demands once federal government tells ASU. Details on the pages of this Nigerian newspaper. To First News newspaper now. El-Rufai, there's nothing like repentant bandits. There is nothing like repentant bandits. Kaduna State Governor El-Rufai speaking there. You find the details on the pages of the First News newspaper. To the Business Day now. 2021 in review. Nigeria's borrowing lacked ambition in 2021. Nigeria's borrowing lacked ambition in 2021. You find the details on the pages of the Business Day. All right, let's continue. And that's all on the papers this morning. But then let's have our conversation. I would look at the Electoral Amendment Bill and dovetail into the fact that INEC is seeking 305 billion naira to conduct the 2023 elections. Now, divergent reactions have come with regards to the president's not assenting to this electoral amendment bill. And according to reports this morning, it seems the senators are looking to, override President Buhari's decision. But before then, some say that the president's decision didn't come to them as a surprise. Others had believed that since he benefited from the direct primaries, they were confident that he was going to assent to that bill, but then they saw otherwise. I wonder what your perception of the president's decision is.
I actually saw this coming when I monitored the advice of the Attorney General of the Federation, Malami, to the president, and he was particular about the cost of direct primaries, the implications that it will hit up the polity, and of course,
which were the same reasons the president
exactly that the president eventually gave. And I saw it coming, but there is an issue here. We have a president who is an individual and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and we have 109 senators and 360 House of Reps members. And they have all come together. There are about 8 stages in the passage of a bill into law.
Yes.
And the section that requires the assent of the president is like the 7th before the final enactment. And of course, constitutionally speaking, the National Assembly is empowered by Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of the nation. And when this bill is presented to the president, he is expected to assent to it, thus making it a law. But he also reserves the right under the law to veto. And when we talk about veto, to turn it back with comments. And this time around, he has commented that this clause of having direct primaries alone will not be the best. That it may create crisis in terms of insecurity, the cause, and that it should be reviewed. And for that purpose, he's not assenting to it. But if you now go to Section 58 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, subsection 5, it gives the National Assembly the power to veto the president, and by 2/3 majority of both chambers of the National Assembly. And right now, the senators are claiming that they already have 73 signatures to that effect, and 73 is over 2/3 majority of the House of Senate, and the House of Representatives are also mobilizing. But for some, the perception is that, can this National Assembly be bold enough
That's the
to
question.
veto the president? Particularly when you benchmark that with what the Senate president said, that he was, going to fly in any direction with the president. I mean, to put it in a light mood. But I just raised an issue now. I mean, the senators and the House of Reps members are representing Nigerians. I know there may be issues with direct primaries, but what the law says, as it is now, is that parties have options between direct primaries and indirect primaries.
And they have a constitution as well.
Exactly. And one of the reasons, pushed forward now is that some parties may now have to go and amend their constitution and things like that.
Changes and all.
But some laws have changed. This is not the first time.
The question for some is that, can they do that within a year, seeing that next year is almost here, and then we have 2023, and then INEC too has to make some adjustments too. You
see, when it comes to time, someone says you cannot manage time. You have 24 hours per day, but you can manage your priorities.
All right.
To maximize your time. Let me ask a simple question. If the family members of a senator need to renew passports, does it take a whole year with the level of influence they have? So if you are so concerned about making laws for the peace, order, and good government of Nigeria, I mean, what does it take? What does it take? But then there were background issues. Recall that when we were debating these direct primaries, some governors were networking.
Of course.
Lobbying the Attorney General, meeting the President. And the position of the members of the National Assembly is that we prefer direct primaries. For that is why eventually the bill was pushed to direct primaries. But the governors are not comfortable with that. And Governor Fayemi of Ekiti State already came out to hail the President. Governor Tom also.
Absolutely.
They came out to hail the... And let's now clarify the issues. In direct primaries, card carriers are free to come out and choose candidates that will go and represent them.
Whoever is coming out.
Exactly.
The test of his popularity.
And that is a very important aspect of democracy. Participation. The indirect primary is saying, we choose delegates who will go and choose on your behalf. And whoever they choose, you are bound by that decision.
To accept it.
Exactly. And now, if we claim that direct primaries will be open to corruption or whatever, either one can be manipulated. And again, going back to the state, Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says that the state shall abolish corrupt practice and abuse of power. So you can curtail all this. If we have, a global respect for rule of law,
right,
we can contain all this. By the way, the Osun State election, eventually the candidate was nominated through direct primaries. And that is why some are coming out to tell the president now that you yourself, you came out as a result of direct primaries. And when we now begin to argue about cost is what must reduce now with the engagement of technology. I belong to some professional bodies that we've been engaging e-voting for years. You can sit down in your car as the driver is driving, vote without rancor. So if we really want to make progress, we can make progress.
If we want to.
Exactly. It's
a decision we have to make.
A decision. But like I said, what the president has done, he has the right to do it, to veto it. And the National Assembly also has the right to veto the president. And by virtue of population, I've said it, a president versus 109 senators and 360 House of Reps members who are expected to be representing the citizens of Nigeria to come out with laws that will provide peace, order, and good government for the people. And the president promised to give us an electoral
that
law
is transparent,
but then
free and fair.
Exactly. And again, now here is a test of fulfilling promises. You know, we say you walk your talk. So there had been many promises, and let's see where this will go. But by and large, I think more stakeholders are getting interested in the electoral processes, and the main focus is for us to be able to have free, fair, and credible elections. And there are other issues in that amendment, like the electronic transmission,
which some persons believe is the major issue and not the issue of direct
primaries,
because the president had also had issues with some of the clauses there.
Exactly. There was a time that the position was that the NCC will be the one to tell, and INEC came out to say we can manage electronic transfer of results. Again, one other issue is trying to peg the expenditure of the parties.
Yes.
Even in the case of these direct primaries, INEC already came out to say we are comfortable with it. It's not our business to finance it. If you are going to say it should be
the party is the party's responsibility.
Will be the one to finance it. And in the boardroom, you talk about returns on investment and you talk about cost effectiveness. So by now, parties should be operating prudently. Find ways of, I mean, there are, if you can identify your card carriers. We have BVN, we have NIN. You can engage, you know, an IT platform to manage without people having to travel down to Abuja and stuff
the onus
like that.
really lies with the parties, you know, putting their act together.
That is if they believe in true democracy. You know, democracy started in Athens in Greece. And it remains the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And because of the population, then everyone could come together to say, okay, this is how we want our society to be. These are the roles we are going to play as stakeholders. And they took decisions. And when this system became operated in larger societies, that is when we have graduated to elective democracy. That is why you need to elect someone to go and represent your interest. So it is still about the interest of the people. And what are the main assignments? In Nigeria, for instance, you find that in section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that says that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. So, and this government should be able to handle whatever may be the side effects of whether direct primaries or indirect primaries subject to manipulations. We have read reports,
the court's ruling
exactly where
on Anduba,
exactly where delegates are settled, you know, to choose, and then some candidates have been imposed on. So if we want to make progress really, and you know, I think we can rise up to the occasion. And now the president is being put through a test, and the National Assembly is being put through a test.
So and fingers crossed
and
see
again,
what happens at the end of the day.
Beyond the electoral processes, can we have security in the land? It's a mandate that the government has to deliver on.
All right. Now let's look at the aspect of INEC coming out to say that they would be needing 305 billion naira for the 2023 elections. Although they have received 100 billion, it is not enough, and that the 40 billion, this amount is different from the 40 billion requested, that is for off-season elections. And there are those who are questioning these monies that the electoral body is asking for. But the question is, if we had improved our process over time, would we be spending so much? And what INEC is asking, is it really that much?
Brilliant question. If we have improved our processes, like I mentioned earlier, the cost should be down. I think in 2019 it was about 189 billion or thereabout. And of course, why people are worried is that we have borrowed so much.
Yeah.
The total indebtedness of this great country was around 12.12 trillion naira in March 2015. Today, it has crossed the threshold of 30 trillion naira. You see, so, and I believe we should be worried. And again, ASU is at loggerhead with the government. And the government is saying we don't have the resources to attend to your needs once. Thank God the president just gave a directive that the resident doctors be paid some money. Whether they have been paid or not, it's a different question. So how have we engaged our resources? And you just asked a valid question now. For a country that has the largest deposit of proven gas in Africa, there should be wealth. For a country that is rich in oil, rich in gold, rich in glass sand, rich in bauxite, rich in weather, rich in human resources, we should be the third richest country in the world. Maybe we allow China and America to take a position, probably UAE. So it's you realize that where we are may be a matter of choice and the engagement of resources. So if my nation has been able to maximize wealth, there is no harm in spending 8 trillion naira on elections. So people want to benchmark. Now, we are planning to spend that much on 2023 elections. And we are already warning people that levies and taxes will go up in 2022. You know the food inflation rate now. You know the unemployment rate. So these are, we need to imagine that this is a private sector investment. I'm talking about government. But how do we operate it in a way that we deliver?
Right.
You see, when
because
you talk
the question of are we getting returns on investments that we are making on the electoral processes?
Exactly. In public relations,
yes,
there are 5 pillars of business. You talk about growth, you talk about survival, you talk about profitability, you talk about employee satisfaction, and you talk about social investment that we call corporate social responsibility. You see, so you match all those together. And profitability will sustain your growth and facilitate your survival and retain your HR, that's the workforce, and you can give back to the society. So are we operating within this circle? And these are questions. And that is why, again, it is important that the primaries, how candidates emerge to represent us, matter, so that they can go in there with the appropriate sense of managing economy effectively. When Adam Smith was writing about the wealth of nations, his focus was not on poverty. His focus was on wealth. And we have some examples around the world. I was monitoring the documentary of Sheikh Zayed of the United Arab Emirates when he was to be 100, and the man said that wealth is not money, but developing people. And he said he knew as a leader that the oil money may not be there forever. So what they did was to create the local wealth that is attracting the global wealth now. So if you are a big business personality or brand in the world and you are not doing business in the UAE, you may not be on the pedestal of the high and mighty. Singapore did the same thing. Singapore left Malaysia in 1965 as an almost frustrated region with little resources. And today, through the erudite governance by Lee Kuan Yew of blessed memory, Singapore is about the best country to live and work in the world. And right now, as we speak, given what the world has gone through in recent times, Singapore is already engaging the workforce of the future. Artificial intelligence.
Right.
How do we engage the future? You see, so, and we can achieve more than this. And even in our so-called poverty, It's like we subsidize the world. You know, children schooling in the UK, you know how much it costs the nation? Our president going for medical care, buying properties. You saw how UAE was treating Nigeria recently in the aviation sector, because they have records of how much of Nigerian resources are domiciled within their community in terms of properties, hotels, and things like that, and yet back at home, there is evident poverty. But so we need to wake up. We need to wake up. And
now, since elections are a key element of a democracy, and it's all about the people, from what we are seeing, isn't it time for the people to begin to own the process? If we have to spend so much, and it is part of perhaps their tax monies, and whatever it is, people, isn't it high time that people begin to sit to say, we need to be part of this process. We need to own it to move us forward.
That's part of what we are doing here. That's why Nigerians are addressing the issue of the direct primaries. They want to be involved. They want to participate. And talking about whether you can bring down the cost.
We are
why
welcome
not?
To that point.
You know, I want to be careful in making some references. I think recently the NSAS protest was just a micro representation of a larger concern in the nation, and you saw the response of the government. And so it's not as if the people do not desire change, but what do we have in the land? It's a big question, and that is not to say that the change will not come. It will definitely come. And talking about cost, can't we have our elections in one day? Can't we engage technology? If you can monitor banking transactions through BVN, if the telcos can manage the services they render and be sure that they are profitable, then why can't we vote? Why can't a party sit down and create an app that will profile their members and, you know, try to identify them? And that is where there is sincerity. And you can vote from wherever you are. I want to ask a simple question. If by the time we even have the next primaries, there is a total lockdown of Nigeria by virtue of anything, are we going to cancel?
But we saw what happened. There were elections even when there was a lockdown at the heat of the COVID-19 last year. We saw the elections.
Because we want to be physical. You know, let me bring this in a lighter note. I was discussing the traffic management in Nigeria. You get to a traffic junction where there are traffic lights. You see different officers in different uniforms still carrying weapons. I mean, you don't see that in some countries of the world. The electronically controlled traffic light is enough to manage the traffic. So must we be so manual? You know, and that's the big question. Perhaps some are benefiting. The money INEC is asking for, if you put that into the health sector, you know, we can simplify this. There are young brains that can help the government simplify the processes. After all, during the recent COVID-19 lockdown, my president attended a COAS meeting without leaving Abuja.
Yes.
Did that nullify the decisions at the meeting?
No.
The Federal Executive Council of Nigeria did not meet physically for a long time. Do you know the cost we saved? Cost of refreshments, cost of inconvenience allowance, different kinds of costs of even setting up the stage and things like that. So if we are sensitive to the need for prosperity to return to this nation by the way you manage your resources, because if your outflow overruns your inflow, you cannot escape poverty, then we should begin to trim down. The world is warning us now about our borrowing, and we are insisting we are within the comfortable threshold of borrowing. No. We need to engage the resources we have. This, by my own assessment, Nigeria is the richest country in the world in terms of resources and potentials. So let's wake up, look at the value chain right from electoral processes and find the way of engaging the people. Democracy is participatory. But having said that, I roll it back again to the National Assembly where we have 109 senators and 360 House of Reps members to
make their
represent
decisions.
us. And we wish them the best.
Absolutely.
And the president to deliver peace, order, and good government
Absolutely.
to Nigerians.
That's a fine place to leave the conversation. Thank you so much, lawyer and social development advocate Jide Ologun, for your time on the program.
Thank you. God bless Nigeria.
Amen.